Hi, this is my Spokane, the leader and the founder of Church Governance Solutions. I want to start the topic today. I want to speak about some poisons that kill churches. I want to speak about poisons that kill churches and, of course, how to deal with them, because these poisons that kill churches are not needed. We don't want churches to be killed. We don't want churches to be destroyed. We want churches to be alive and well and perform very well. And that is why I want to address this type of poisons so that we can deal with them and make sure that our churches live. Now, I want to start today by this poison called unspiritual pastors. There's another poison called unspiritual pastors, and that's a poison that the church is facing. We're seeing churches being destroyed. We're seeing churches dying a literal death because of some unspiritual pastors. Now, churches rise and fall based on the kind and the type of the pastors that they have. We know that because pastors then become visionaries. They are the leaders of the church. They are the people that should direct the church going forward or going backwards. It will depend on the pastor. So therefore, it is very, very important then that we look at the pastors that will either build their churches or they are killing their churches. Now, pastors that are carnal, I'm talking about those that are unspiritual, those that are very nominal in nature. They lack the true relationship with the Lord. When they lack a true relationship with the Lord, because the vision is brought about by God himself, then they lack to run a vision, because the vision is brought by God. When you don't have a relationship with the God of the vision, you're going to struggle actually to lead the church. So therefore, unspiritual pastors, they struggle actually to grapple with the vision itself, because, as I say, the vision is given by God himself. So therefore, if you don't relate with the God of the vision, therefore the vision cannot be progressing. Now, we know that there's inability as well to truly lead the church. If you're going to lead the church of God, whose God should actually be speaking to you and guiding you and directing you of how to lead the church, because if you are not sure how to lead the church, you are going to mislead the church itself. So therefore, we're speaking about when you are not spiritual, you're going to fail to lead a spiritual church, because a spiritual church goes by what God is saying. And therefore, you're going to fail this church because you don't hear from God. So this inability to lead the church is brought by a lack of relationship with God himself. So therefore, this will gradually snuff out the life of the church, and the church will die a natural death. So pastors that are ignorant, and I'm sure you will know the churches that are ignorant, the pastors that are ignorant, they're ignorant about the word, they're ignorant about the vision, they're ignorant about anything to do with the work of God, and therefore the church will die because of that. And because these people, they are poorly, some of them are poorly educated. We're talking about educated about the word of God. We're not talking about the academic education. We speak about educated about the word of God. Because the knowledge of the work of God, administration of the word of God, how to run a church, how to lead people, how to relate with people, is very, very important that the pastor does have that. But spiritual relationship with God becomes the first actually in line to make pastors to be able to lead the church. Now we're speaking about skills as well, because when we speak about pastors that will lead the church, when you are unspiritual, you cannot be skilled spiritually. And that becomes very difficult, because the leading of the church, it must be in line with the word of God, as I've said. It must be in line with hearing the voice of God. Now, people become unskilled as pastors when they are not in line with the word of God, when they are not in line with the spiritual part of the word of God. Therefore, they cannot be spiritual leaders. Because a spiritual leader particularly should be somebody who's spiritual. So you cannot lead a spiritual entity without being spiritual yourself. And therefore, it actually snuff out the life out of the church as well. And it actually makes the church not to be alive. You find unspiritual pastors sometimes, they are forever absent from church. The very same church that they are leading, the very same church that they are running, they are absent from church, they are absent from activities, they are not there in prayer meetings, they are not there in Bible studies, they are not there even on a Sunday meeting. They just decide not to come sometimes. And this, we're speaking about a leader who is the senior pastor in a church, but yet not attending prayer meetings of his own church. And that becomes very, very dangerous. And it's a very, very poisonous thing to a church then. So I want to emphasize the fact that it is very important that a spiritual leader will take responsibility. They will take spiritual responsibility as well to pray for their own people, to make sure that they pray for the church, to make sure that they learn how to run the church itself, and they hear the voice of God to give them direction. They will take that responsibility and even responsibility to feed the sheep, which is the congregation itself. This is very, very important. And I must emphasize that a church that is being fed spiritually properly, it is sustainable and it will actually be strong. So it is therefore a poison, and a very, very serious poison for a pastor to be unspiritual. Secondly, the other spirit that is a poison in a church, it is what we call contextual problems. Contextual problems become therefore a poison in a church. Contextual problems in the area, in the community, in the locality, in the nation where the church is located will surely affect the church, because it depends on what the location of the church, where the location of the church is. It will speak about the community that the church finds itself in, the nation that the church finds itself in, and that's the context that we're speaking about. Now, if a church is in a violent area, it is very, very important that we understand that it is going to affect the church in a big way, because people don't want to walk out and go to church. They don't want to go to prayer meetings. They won't have all-night prayers because of the place that is actually unsafe actually to do so. Now, the context of the community therefore affected the church. In a context whereby there's a lot of criminality as well, it becomes very difficult to run a church in a place like that, because in the sense, then you'll find that people are afraid, as I said, to walk in the street. They're afraid to even conduct open airs, crusades as well, because they're just afraid actually to be outside in a contextual place where there is a locality of people that are criminals in nature. And that becomes very, very problematic. It may be the stronghold of rival religious sect. That is another thing. The resistant area or an aging community that young people are moving away from, that is going to affect the church. So if in the particular community there is another religious sect that is strong, like you will realize in some of the provinces in South Africa, where you find that there's a religious sects that are leading a particular province. And in that regard, even if you want to grow a big church there, people are so stuck with religious sects that are actually holding them back, and everybody believes in this religious sect that they cannot change their mind. And it actually becomes very difficult to turn people around to really become children of God who understand the church and follow God in their lives. And they will follow a religious sect, and you'll find that because of religious sect, people therefore become stuck to that. The example that when young people move away from a place, and it's only aging members, you're going to have a problem as well, because it's contextual, whereby aging and old people may not be able anymore to move around to go to church. They may not be mobile enough to go to church anymore. And as a result, the church becomes empty and it dies a natural death, because people cannot move around anymore. They are old, they remain at home, and they don't just understand actually even the move of changing the church dynamically into the current church, whereby many of the things may be done even virtually, many things may be done technologically and so on. Elderly people may not understand that, and that may kill the church completely as well. And when you're having an aging communities as well, they don't revitalize the church. They don't actually make the church to grow. And the more the aging members in the church, some come to a point where they die, and as they die, then the membership drops because of that. So that becomes very important as well, that we look at it and say that's a great poison as well, that poisons church and actually strangulate the church from growing. The recent report shows that over 13,600 churches are closed down due to the maiming or killing or banning of churches actually in the Middle East or in the East Asia countries and in Central Africa, West Africa sometimes it was there because there are some contesting religions in places like that. And when you're finding that they are contesting religions, they are fighting actually against each other. And as a result, because of that, you're going to have a problem of people afraid to go to church, because sometimes when they gather in church, they get attacked in the church and they get hijacked in the church, they get kidnapped in the churches. As they are facing such situations, and especially in environments that are like that, you are going to find it difficult to grow the church, and you'll find that churches die and what we call a natural death. So context becomes very important. There are areas where many people die because they're being attacked, and that becomes very dangerous as well. It does affect the church, and many of the churches may not actually grow because of that. So I want to emphasize the fact that context becomes very important as well, and we cannot ignore it. And also remember, as a church, you are planted in a community, and that community, you cannot avoid that the community will affect you as a church. Although you affect the church, the community yourself, but the community will affect you as well. Culture of that community, we speak about traditions that are done in that community, they will affect the church without doubt. And for sure, you would know the effect of the church by the community. I want to end up here today, your host, Maikona Spokane. Thank you very much for listening to us and be part of this great topic. This was part 1, of course, and we move on to part 2 tomorrow. And I would love you to also visit our Facebook page, Church Governance Solutions. Like the page, the Facebook page, Maikona Spokane, like the page as well. And don't forget our YouTube channel as well. Please make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel so that the teachings of this kind may reach you and you'll be able actually to learn out of this. May the good Lord bless you, and allow me to check out right here and say join us tomorrow as we deal with part 2 of this great topic. Cheers for now.